And welcome once again to the Liberty Lounge podcast. I'm joined with two of my favorite knuckleheads, Jared of Guns and Gadgets on the left, and out in California is Anthony the Armed Scholar. Today we're playing a game called Count the Logos. We did not plan this, but we look like some NASCAR drivers here. All right, the chaos continues. We are marching towards January 20th. Do you think it's going to happen? How something's going to happen between now and then? How big? What level? 0 to 10. 0 being nothing, 10 being full-on assassination. Where are you at? What's coming? What's your prediction between now and January 20th?
Dude, they're going to try everything they can. I think we're looking at a solid 7, probably.
Solid 7. Solid Anthony, 7. 0 to 10. What do you think's coming between now and January 20th?
They're in their last gaps of the Biden administration. So if we're just talking about like funneling money, a 10. They're going to try to funnel as much money as they can. So that's a 10. Assassination, 2. I'll give it a 2. But yeah,
done that.
Yeah. Overall, I'll give it a 7, like Jared.
No, but we got the drones that are being reported over Mar-a-Lago now.
Alleged drones over Mar-a-Lago. I think they'll be sniffing around in whatever Melania's underwear drawer. With all that's going on, they end up raiding their house. It is bizarre. Speaking of Trump and Mar-a-Lago and the raids, Trump got impeached for chasing things on the laptop. And now the very guy with the laptop has now been pardoned. Shocked?
No. Knew it was coming.
He said it wasn't.
Yeah, we knew this was all coming. If you believe a politician and you're crazy, if their lips are moving, they're lying. But nobody's above the law, right?
Nobody is above the law. Did y'all see this? That they started telegraphing yesterday that they're going to, that he might pardon Liz Cheney, Adam Schiff, and there's one more, is a woman.
Anthony Fauci.
Anthony Fauci, sort of a woman.
Yeah,
sort of a woman.
Little itty bitty one.
What is a woman?
What is a woman? What about Hunter's going back to 2014? Isn't that wild? Nobody wants to talk about that. It goes back to 2014, a 10-year pardon.
There's a reason for that.
Why?
Because that's when he started working in Ukraine for Burisma, and that's when all the 10% for the big guy started. So Biden covered his own ass by pardoning his son all the way back to January 1 of 2014.
It's a great question for the folks out there. How surprised are you? And here's the deal. Like I talked to my audience about this, and everybody's like, Johnny, you're a moron. I agree. But you're also a moron for being surprised. I'm not surprised that he's off. I knew he wasn't going to jail. I knew he wasn't going to prison. I didn't think it would be a bold run straight down the middle in an I formation pardon. I figured it would be some workaround with some federal judge or a workaround with some other way charges dropped. I just figured it'd be this like slimier way than, we're pardoning him.
Well, they tried the charges. They tried to get him dropped several times, and to their credit, the judges dug their heel in. They're like, no, we're not tossing this case, which you don't see federal judges usually do that to the president's son, especially when that president's in power. But I mean, it got thrown into high gear once Kash Patel was nominated for the FBI. They are petrified of Kash Patel leading the FBI. He, as everybody knows or should know, he is the one who uncovered the Russia hoax, and he knows the people who have been doing this stuff for decades, and claims he's ready to shine some light on him. So
we've been talking about this. Anthony, tell me, which one is the best cabinet pick? I am staying with Pete Hegseth. I think that they're good. They're both good. But is Kash Patel, is that the big one? Is that the real one? Is that the one you're most excited about?
I think that one's going to be really, really, really interesting because he's already, even before he was nominated, he was talking about the things that he would do for the FBI and some of these other offices if he got into control of it. So it's going to be really interesting to see what he does and the reaction of the left. Like, they are petrified of him, and we're already seeing some stuff pop up. I don't know if it was real or not. I think I saw it on Twitter or X or whatever that he was hacked already. So they're already trying stuff.
The funny part is they claim it's an Iranian hack, and it's actually the FBI who probably hacked him, and they're trying to put it on Iran. So we'll go after Iran.
I saw somebody yesterday. They said anytime that the first blame, something happens, if the first blame goes aims at a country that's not on the central banking system, then then it's definitely the FBI or the CIA, because they won't blame any of our own people. Yeah, I ain't buying that he gets hacked, and it's of course it's Iran or Iraq or Kuwait or Canada, one of them. Speaking of Canada, what about them being the 51st state?
No,
we're not calling that gay North Dakota. I wanted to call it gay North Dakota.
Gayer California.
Gayer California. What about Trump hanging out with the big gay dude from up there, Fidel Castro's son?
Well, I think it was great that it actually happened, the meeting, because so Trump announced literally like 36 hours before Trudeau got on a plane to go down to Mar-a-Lago that, you know what, we're done losing in the trade battle with you. We're going to start lodging some tariffs if we're not going to redo this deal. You know, a lot of people, I'll say this, there are people who are watching this that probably don't like Donald Trump, but that's fine. We're not electing. We're electing a president, a business head to run the business that is the United States of America.
Yeah, I don't know that I like him.
But
I voted for him.
He does some great stuff. He does some terrible stuff. We're not voting for your future husband or your dad or your best friend. We're voting for somebody to be a cunning, crude businessman and get this country back to where it should be business-wise.
Right. But as a person, do I like him? I think he's funny. I think he's entertaining. I voted for him. Mm-hmm. But do I like him and want my son to emulate him?
No.
Probably not. But am I glad that he's going to be the president? Hells yeah. So
fired.
You're fired. So, which works so much better with a northern accent, to be clear. The show The Apprentice doesn't work in Atlanta.
No.
Well, sorry about that, but we'll see you
move
soon.
Along now.
It's okay. Got to get on out of here. So what you're saying is the people are saying, hey, we have been effed too long with trade deals. We got to go shake hands with the boss and get things right. And this is a big bifurcation between folks on what I believe a lot of folks on our side understand, that Trump is going to fix things on a grand scheme, the 10,000 foot, the trade deals and all the tariffs and all this nonsense. Whereas the left is just screaming up and down about individual rights, and morons worry about individual rights, though individual rights are pretty freaking important. But he's going to fix the big one. Anthony, you okay? We are hiring with the idea, and we talked about this, I think, on last episode. We are hiring a businessman to run the business of America.
Yeah, I mean, and he's much more than just a businessman. When you look at like international relations and like the fact that there were no wars while he was a president, like that's huge also. And we are facing down the barrel of some really serious stuff. I mean, when we talked about the odds of the Biden administration trying to ramp stuff up, I mean, obviously they're trying to ramp stuff up in Russia and Ukraine right now. So like you also, when you voted for Trump, you're voting for a businessman who in international relations is really good at negotiating and working around wars and conflict. And then with the tariff stuff, it's interesting because the left is always screaming about the tariffs, like, oh, like you're going to pay $500 for a carton of eggs and yada, yada, yada.
We already do.
Yeah, I know we already do here in California, especially. But a lot of the tariff stuff it's just a tactic to get these countries and these leaders to negotiate. And I mean, with Canada happened immediately when he's like, I'm going to put tariffs on you. All right, we'll start talking to you with all of these. Yeah. So it's just another
part about the tariff stuff is we've been doing tariffs since the colonial days. It's nothing new. But what happens, like we'll use Toyota for an example. Toyota back in the day, I forget what year, but they lodged I think it was a 100 or 200% tariff on any pickup truck coming in from another country. So what did Toyota do? They built a factory in the U.S. to bring manufacturing here, and they sell all of their pickup trucks now through the U.S., at least for here. So it's a way to bring the workforce back to the country. And I mean, it's Trump's his biggest strength is that he's a master negotiator. And when he's negotiating on behalf of the country, I think we're in a better spot.
The art of the deal. Mm-hmm. Speaking of the Trump family, this was revealed last night. Did y'all see this? Y'all are just out there like worrying about Supreme Court cases, Anthony. But I'm in the dregs of the internet looking at stuff that's really important. Barron Trump's voice has been revealed. How good is that?
Yeah, his voice was deeper than I thought it would be. I thought he would sound like Alfred E. Newman would sound.
I thought he would be, a little more awkward, but he was very pleasant. So for anybody that didn't see it, nobody's ever heard Barron Trump talk, not publicly. And he's like, hi, It's really nice to see you. And it was really well done. A good, strong handshake. Anthony, these are the issues that matter.
I saw that too. And he kind of has that Trump cadence also, obviously. But I mean, was it on all social media, the suitcase? I like my suitcase. So that's all we knew. And then everybody's shocked that like 18 years later, his voice is different.
Yeah. So, he's what, 6'7", and we're shocked that he has a deep voice.
Yeah.
Yeah. My balls just dropped like 2 weeks ago. Apparently Barron's dropped when he was 14. I like it. These are hard-hitting issues. I want to talk about Pete Hegseth, and I'm in love with the idea of this guy. I think it's a strong move. Is anything going to happen? Is anything really going to happen? We talked on here 2 weeks ago about my bet about the ATF with a friend of ours that I think things are going to change with the AFT. My buddy says nothing is going to change. Is really anything going to come out? It plays nice on social media. Say we're releasing the lists and we're releasing all the JFK stuff. What can Pete Hegseth actually make happen?
Well, he's going to be the head of the DOD. So his main thing will be making sure the military is a military of might again. And when's the last time? Here's a trivia question for you.
I know the answer to this already.
The United States of America won a war?
Anthony, do you know this? I already know this one. When's the last time the U.S. won a war?
World War II.
There you go. Ding, ding, ding. And people hear that and they're shocked. And I'm like, dude, we hadn't done crap. We have done a lot of operations that have been very successful. We've done some pretty cool stuff. My understanding, there's some black ops that we've done that were masterful. And we have had moments that were just, holy crap. Saving Captain Phillips off the back of the boat when Tom Hanks was in trouble. That shot was from one boat to another, and they're moving one shot, red mist, amazement. Really, really good. But as far as an overall might, we hadn't done much in about 90 years, 85 years.
And I know some guys will be, and gals will be up in arms about, we've like Desert Storm, Desert Shield. Yeah. But it's not a win like we used to.
It's not a war.
It was a war. I got a campaign medal for that. But it's not like it used to be. Like when we used to go to war, our goal was to annihilate the enemy, force them to surrender, or take out their leader, or a combination of all three. And they don't do that anymore. They just go in, carpet bomb, we'll build up all your schools, we'll give some contracts to people here in the U.S.
It's always about the contracts. And to be clear, we're not saying that the military are a bunch of sissies running around. Not at all. There's been some wildly good stuff in the last 80 years. But as an overall idea, the Pentagon has been struggling since World War II. And it really, a lot of folks don't know that. It's always about those rebuilding contracts. Who already has been handed a rebuilding contract for Ukraine? Here's some trivia for you. Ukraine is getting smashed. Who has already gotten one of the contracts for Ukraine? Anybody know?
Nancy Pelosi.
You have no idea how close you are. The Clinton Foundation. They are either in the running or have been awarded one of the contracts, and that is wild. That the Clinton Foundation is over there making cash. It's also wild that in 2014, Hunter Biden goes on to Burisma's board, and within 5 years, there is a war going on there that totally sends a lot of money heading over there. So you're saying that Pete Hegseth is going to push us to a place of power where we're moving away from drones, negotiations, and contracts, and actually into might, where people can not fool around with us or our interests.
Yeah, the 4 years under Trump, our military was drastically different than it was under Obama, or is currently now under Joe Biden. We're going to go back to those type of policies to put our military first, and maybe not leave billions of dollars of top-notch equipment in the desert for our enemies to grab and use and parade to make fun of us.
Took them 3 days to get those Apaches off the ground.
I know.
3 days they were flying.
Did you guys see those guys in the tiger stripe outfits? I saw that there was, I think it was Taliban and tiger stripe outfits.
Vietnam tiger stripe?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
Iranian, Iraq, what are they? Taliban?
I think it was Taliban. Yeah.
I just saw I love tiger stripes so much, and if you were to show me that there's anybody wearing active duty wearing tiger stripes, I don't know, I might defect. I am willing for a pair of good, well-fitting tiger stripe breeches. I might defect. I'm not sure. I'd have to think about it. I'd have to pause.
Just go to Army Navy, man, and get some.
They ain't got no real good ones though. I need to be some tiger stripes. Today's nonsense is brought to you by our friends at Brownells. You were out there week before last. I was over there on their website yesterday, and I'm telling you, loaded, absolutely loaded. Christmas shopping, head over there. What's your favorite thing at Brownells right now?
I need some magazines for my brand new Scar that is going to be
You
coming
got a
in.
Scar?
Yeah, I finally bit the bullet and pulled out the charge card.
What kind of? I knew we got this. I didn't know if we were allowed to talk about it. What kind of Scar did you get?
Scar 17S, which is the Scar Heavy in 308, and it's woodland.
And it's in woodland. It ain't Tiger Stripe, but it's woodland. Big thank you to the folks at Brownells. We love them. Y'all jump over there, check them out. Really jealous about that 308. Anthony, are you texting or what are you doing in your lap there?
I pulled it up from Ronnie Adkins from Funker.
Okay. You were looking into your lap and grinning gently, and I just didn't know what was going on down there.
It's the homies in Tiger Stripe.
Text me that, buddy. Text me. We got Tiger Stripe going on overseas.
He said this is from Ronnie Adkins from Funker 530. He said that's the drippiest terrorist I've ever seen.
The drippiest terrorist we ever see. For the old people out there, we'll have to put a translation in the show notes of what the drippiest terrorist is out there. All right, what else is going on? What's on your noggins?
Should we address what has the Special Forces community up in arms?
That's where I was headed. I wanted to see if y'all would bring it up. Go.
Well, I'll speak. I don't know the facts other than what I've seen on a podcast by some veterans. They shredded Tim Kennedy's book, Scars and Stripes, specifically one chapter that they basically read most of it and cross-referenced all of his claims to people that were actually there with him. And there's some discrepancies. And I guess tonight, as we're recording this, they have a live stream because Tim Kennedy came out and rebutted what they said.
He says he rebutted. Yeah. Let's start at the beginning. For folks that don't know, Tim Kennedy is a long-term, career military dude. He also has fantastic genetics and hand-eye coordination. So he turned into a UFC fighter. Yep. And then he joined either the History Channel, Discovery Channel, one of them, and did the show Finding Hitler. Newsflash, they never found Hitler. So he's a fraud on that front. On March 18 of 2018, he came out very openly against firearms. And I don't want to go through all of it, but it was really, really against firearms. So you have an active duty military member, a vet, somebody who is in a lot of ways the face of the bro-vet community or one of the big faces of the bro-vet communities. I serve, so I'm amazing. And we love people that serve, freaking love them. But the bro-vets, man, they are another breed. Then he writes this book called The Scars and Stripes, and these guys eviscerated Anthony. How much of that podcast have you watched of those guys? What are their names? The Anti-Hero Podcast. Mm-hmm. The Anti-Hero Podcast go page by page by page. Anthony, you watched any of that?
To be honest, I have not. My information I got was through all of our group chats, and we have some people that are really plugged in to that specific community who've given us some information from kind of behind the scenes. And so I was getting a lot of the information from that. I watched some of the like follow-up smaller videos. Who was it? VFT or VHT? I can't remember.
Valhalla.
Valhalla. Yeah.
He did that. It was good.
He did a follow-up because I saw Tim's reaction video and then I saw that response to Tim's reaction video. That's all I've seen. And a lot of that too, I think it's interesting because the book's been out for a while, but obviously nobody read the book. And obviously the community, that like veterans community, didn't read the book.
Right.
And some of the stuff, at least that I've seen, the discussion back and forth, it's outside of my knowledge base. Like, I don't know like a lot of that military stuff. And I think that's why a lot of that went over the head of the general community is because you don't know what you don't know. Like when some of these things are being said in some of these like credentials he was claiming he had allegedly and that he doesn't have allegedly. Easy there, Tim, if you watch this. But we just don't know what we don't know. And so it took people within that community to call BS for all this to stir up. And it's interesting that it's this far down the road that it's happened.
Yeah. And the biggest thing is he's claimed that he had Valor Awards for everything he did over there, every campaign he went on. And he also claimed that he had a Purple Heart. And he doesn't.
And he admitted that yesterday. Yesterday morning, he admitted, hey, I don't have a Purple Heart. I should have been awarded a Purple Heart. It was a paperwork error. And holy smokes, apparently, and to Anthony's point, I'm not in the military. I wasn't in the military. And a lot of this is just because the book apparently is a big pile of flaming lies. But a lot of them you don't know unless you have been in that world. And these guys read this and like, no, that can't happen. That's an impossibility. There are impossibilities in that world. Some of them, there's a big pile of things that are doubtful. There's a pile of things that are probable, didn't happen. There's a pile of things that are impossibilities. And then there's another pile of out and out, obvious, complete lies. But the problem is he named names.
Yeah.
And these guys picked up the phone and called the guys that are in the book. And apparently almost a lot of them were like, no, 100% lies. And then Tim Kennedy's like, I can't even remember the names of the men that died. And it was wild because the military guys are like, or the leaders that have done this for years are like, you never forget the names of your buddies that die. This is impossible. But the big one, it looks like the one that people are like really chasing is this Purple Heart.
Yeah, because I mean, that is a stolen valor claim.
Which is a federal offense?
Well, you could be stripped of your tab for a special forces tab. You could be brought down to E1, which is basically, stripped of all your time and money that you've earned, and you can be charged federally.
How big of a deal is this? A friend of mine hollered and said, why can't you guys in the gun world just leave each other alone? Anthony, why do we chase this? I have been talking about Tim Kennedy since 2018 because I think my personal opinion is that he's a moron, but also is that I have a problem with him representing gun companies and being openly anti-gun. And he has stood by that over and over and over again. He's stood by those claims. Anthony, why can't we just leave well enough alone? Does this stuff matter?
Well, this one specifically has not really much to do with like the gun community directly. Like obviously it's implicated because of Tim Kennedy, right? And his stances prior on the Second Amendment and some of his statements. But this is more specifically is for like the veterans community and his service record and things like that. And that's where this is really spurring from. I guess the ancillary impact would be like if it's interesting because we've talked about this on the podcast before, and I know Johnny, you've done videos. I don't know, Jared, if you've done video. I don't think specifically addressed any of the Tim Kennedy stuff on my channel, but we've talked about it, like his stance on the Second Amendment, and he's made some pretty dumb comments about the Second Amendment and the purpose and the text and history surrounding the Second Amendment. But that was not enough to get certain companies to move away from him. This, since it's not purely Second Amendment in that community, and it's something else, in which is kind of the foundation of where all these other things were built on, it's going to be interesting to see what comes of this. And I think the gun community is plugged into this because of our prior track record in looking at some of the things Tim Kennedy has said and looking at the response of those companies that back him and prop him up as the face of their company. And I know some guys have done videos on this recent situation talking about that as well, calling out those companies that are pushing him forward. And then just the companies that he is a face of on his own right, like the double check and all of those things. So I think it's one of those interesting things where like the Second Amendment community has a history and a track record with Tim Kennedy. And now we're seeing this other community kind of like also clash with him in some of the things that he's said. And it's an interesting kind of like whirlwind. I mean, I can only imagine what's going on in Tim's camp.
Yeah, I'd imagine they are circling the wagons. Again, I don't find him intelligent enough to really, I find him like amazing. Like he's done some bad A stuff. And that's what the guys on the podcast kept saying. Like the stuff that he's done stands on its own. He got in the octagon. Like that's enough. That's pretty freaking awesome. And then he's talking in the book about running around with an entire bag of grenades and throwing them, laser beam throwing through the windows. And the guys are like, we did not use grenades in Afghanistan because everything there, including the floors, are made out of dirt and you can't see after they go off. We don't use. And so these guys understand that stuff. I think for the folks at home that may not be super plugged in, that are maybe just like, hey, I love guns, I love freedom, let's talk a little bit about it. For me, I think what's important is that he is the face of a lot of companies, and he's been the face of 511 for a long, long time. He has been the face or one of the faces of the U.S. Concealed Carry Association. And full disclosure, all three of us have been up to their expo a couple times together. And honest, one of my favorite trips ever. Our last trip to Expo 2 years ago was a freaking blast. A year and a half ago, it was a great time. But then a little over a year ago, Tim Kennedy signed on with a company called Double Check. Double Check, for those of y'all that don't know, Jared, explain to that. You do a better job than I am. What is Double Check?
The 30,000 foot view is as you go to buy a gun, an FFL is going to run your NICS background check. Well, Double Check offers, they don't want to, they do offer another service that FFLs can buy into. And what it does is scours your social media for things they think should disqualify you from having a gun.
So it's a third party organization that is only designed to keep guns out of the hands of people.
Yeah, to violate your First Amendment
using
and your
social media.
Right.
And Tim Kennedy is the face. And I double checked, no pun intended. I double checked it yesterday. But I double checked it yesterday. He is the face of Double Check, and he's still on there. And when he signed on with them, I said, no more, I can't do it. And twice this calendar year, I've had phone calls from my agent saying, hey, would you sign on for another round of and what am I? Who am I? Doesn't matter. Tim Kennedy's a big fish. I am the amoeba that floats around in the bottom of the cesspool of this world. So what difference does it make what I decide? But they said, hey, do you want to? I was offered 2 contracts this year to work with the USCCA. Great people. There's some people up there I really like. There's some things I don't like, but overall, I like a lot of the people up there. But with Tim Kennedy, the face of it, I took a hard stand. 2 days ago, I did a video about that, and I told my audience, I was like, hey, I lost money doing that. Anthony, does this matter to the person that's out there? How do we present this? I know for the vets, a lot of it's about stolen valor and misrepresenting because he misrepresented a lot of stuff in the military, like made a few organizations, including the Green Berets, look like morons. Mm-hmm. And for the Second Amendment folks, more like me, I think it's more of we need to be careful who that we follow or what companies we work with based on who they interact with.
Yeah, I think that's the bigger implication for just like the average viewer. I mean, obviously people are watching and following this because, drama, catches a lot of people on the internet. But some of this also goes down to like when it comes to the gun industry, I'm going to say the gun industry because I'm not going to say the Second Amendment industry because those are 2 completely different things. Just because a company sells guns or sells gun accessories does not mean that they're pro Second Amendment or they prop up Second Amendment ideals. So then you have to be cognizant of who is this gun company using as their figurehead to push whatever it is that they're selling. And Tim Kennedy is one of those guys that a lot of companies have propped up. And again, like you said, the podcast where they mentioned, and we've talked about this in our group chats, like Tim has the credentials to not even need to embellish some of these things. Like he's ex-UFC, competitor. I mean, at a high level, jiu-jitsu black belt at a high level, special forces, Green Beret,
qualified.
Ranger qualified. I mean, yeah, he served multiple tours. Like he has all the credentials. And it just came down to like, believing in your own myth and trying to oversell things. I don't know, embellishing things in the books. Cause again, I haven't read the book. I haven't watched the podcast. I don't know enough of the nuances with, military service to know like what he said is right and what he said is wrong. But it seems like plenty of people in that community are saying that the things that he has said are complete fabrications. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I think it matters to the average person and just for people to be aware of like when you see a company, put up advertisements on Instagram or whatever, and they're using certain people, don't just assume that company is doing it because that person is the biggest two-way advocate in the world. Sometimes it just comes down to clicks. Like sometimes they are just using that person because they think that person converts.
I'm a capitalist. I'm okay with conversions and I'm okay with sales. I get it. Like I am a completely pro-capitalist person. I'm okay with that, Jared. I'm okay with selling stuff. I love capitalism.
Yeah, and this is America. You should be okay with it.
Yep.
All right. So this begs the question in my mind. Okay, so some companies have stepped in it. I've heard people go, I'll never wear 511 pants as long as Tim Kennedy's the face of 511. I've never owned a pair of 511 pants. So I don't have a dog in that hunt. There have been a lot of companies in my almost 10 years in working in this industry. A lot of companies have stepped in it. Benchmade, for people who don't remember, Benchmade, the knife company, they worked with their local police department to grind up some guns, and they used their machines at the Benchmade facility to destroy some guns that were either bought back or confiscated or whatever. It doesn't matter. And people lost their crap over it, I think, understandably. But then you have companies like Ruger who stepped in a few years ago. We have Springfield and Rock Island Armory. I was in the middle of that one in 16 or 17. And so here's my question. What is the statute of limitations on that? I was hanging out with James Reeves, I don't know, about a year ago, TFB TV James Reeves, and he said, he's like, Johnny, you got to let it go. Because I said something, blah, blah, blah. And he said, this company, I'm like, I'll never work with them or buy their product. He's like, dude, you got to let it go. You have a phone in your pocket made in communist China in a sweatshop. Get off your freaking high horse. It's an inanimate object. It's a piece of metal. Protect your family with the best piece you can and quit worrying. Yeah, they might have messed up a year ago. You got to let it go. Is there a statute of limitations? How far do we draw the line? Knowing that you and I probably on both of our feet have Vietnam sweatshop shoes, probably,
China.
And we have Chinese made phones right here. And I have is that an Apple computer?
It is.
We have an Apple computer right there made in a sweatshop, but those little fingers are just so good. They can like put those electronics in there so well. How do we type away on a sweatshop made computer onto chat rooms going, I'll never buy Troy Industries battle sites, and their battle sites
They're
are
good.
awesome.
They're really good. Yeah.
They're so good. I have a pair, but I got them used. I'll never buy Troy. Typing on a communist computer.
Yeah, it's something I always struggle with because I you know me, I try to stay humble in everything I do because I'm nobody special.
I agree.
Yeah. But I'm not that guy. I've never have been. Like I'll get viewers who will comment like on an article of clothing I'm wearing. One day I was wearing a sweatshirt that had The Rock on it, and it was right after he made some stupid political statements, either for Obama or whatever. And they're like, "Oh, you should not wear that. I can't believe that. I'm going to unsubscribe." Like, I'm not that kind of guy who's going to go through my wardrobe every 3 weeks to see who made what that might have offended somebody. It's
while he's typing it on a communist phone.
It's like I don't care that much about like I gotta X-ray everything I have to make sure everything is holier than thou for everybody else in the world. But there are some things that I won't buy because of stances companies have made.
Springfield.
I haven't bought an Echelon. I've shot it at shows and I really like it, but I haven't bought one.
Daniel Defense.
I don't have a Daniel Defense either.
Would you buy a Daniel Defense?
Lately on some of the QC things, probably not.
Probably not based on QC, but not based on politics. Anthony, how hard do you draw this line? Because we all got problems. I drive a Toyota. And I had a friend of mine's father one time looked at me and said, Emperor Hirohito thanks you for your purpose. And I went, it was made in Alabama. Yeah. And your Ford was made in Mexico. Where do we draw the line, Anthony?
I think it's just person dependent. I think everybody has their tolerance. Some people want to be like, really, really hard. Gatekeepers.
Gate.
Oh, a gatekeeper. Go ahead, Anthony.
Yeah, just
hey. I actually heard you right the first time.
Ma'am.
Some people are very hard line in their approach, especially I think there is a little bit of difference when it comes to electronics and Apple versus if you're really plugged into the 2A community and you have a gun company directly fighting against the interests of the people in which they sell the products to. It's a very interesting, and some companies took their lashings hard and some companies haven't recovered. Some companies you can, and some of it might just come down to like, what have they done lately? Like, have they learned their lessons? Because when you look at companies like Daniel Defense, like, yeah, they made statements, but now they have a new CEO and they're saying certain things as far as how active they want to get in the Second Amendment community and start doing certain Second Amendment advocacy. So maybe their new track record and their new leadership is holding to the ideals that we hold to. And so maybe you don't hold it against people who, did bad things and made bad statements in the past. So I don't know. I think it really is for everybody to make the decision for themselves. I tried to avoid buying certain products from certain gun companies that their stance when it comes to the Second Amendment don't align with mine.
Who?
I really haven't bought a Springfield, but I think a lot of that is a product of one, I wouldn't be able to get a lot of the stuff that I would be interested in anyways. I mean, obviously I can get like Hellcats and that, but I just choose not to. I'll go to something else because, there's something else that's comparable on the market and I don't necessarily want to support them. I won't support them. But again, everybody's different. And people could say I'm a hypocrite because I'm supporting a different company. Some people would say like Liberty Safe, like if you own a Liberty, like you should have gotten rid of it. And some people are like, well, I already had one. So like, I'm not going to throw it out. Some people are like, I don't want to support them anymore, so I'm going to put a sticker over it. It's and some people don't care. Some people just say, hey, they make a good safe, I'm going to buy it.
I think most of the time the biggest noise comes from the people who are probably have no skin in the game. Like for the Liberty Safe thing, the people who are saying get rid of your safes probably don't have a safe, probably don't know you spent $6,000 on that safe.
All those guys that are like, I'll never wear 511 pants again. I'm like, dude, you don't even own a pair of 511 pants. Calm down.
And then that's how I try to balance things and stay humble. Is everybody was pissed at Marty Daniel for what he said in front of Congress. What did you expect the guy to say as a business owner?
For people that didn't see it, Marty Daniels was testifying in front of Congress. It was a hot one. We were watching it live.
Daniel Defense, Marty.
Daniel Defense. Yeah, Daniel Defense is in Marty Daniel. And they just said, hey, do you support, it's at the end of a long, he did fine. Like the whole thing was fine. And do you support the abolishment of the ATF? He goes, at this time, no. Now, his family, his kids, his grandkids, colleges, his 401k, all of his family, all of his friends, all of his workers, everything that they have invested over decades in this company.
Depends on working with them.
Only is allowed with a little piece of paper from that FFL. And then somebody on Congress says, should you burn that company to the ground? No, at this time, no. Because they give me permission to operate and people lost their crap.
Yeah, they did. And he's a businessman. He didn't go there looking to abolish the ATF. That wasn't what the meeting was about. It was like a curveball they threw him at the end. It looked like, I watched it live. It looked like he was caught off guard. And he said the first thing that came to his head. And
I think it's the right decision.
Business wise, yeah.
As the CEO, and he's speaking as the CEO, the answer is at this time, I don't.
And that was when the Joe Biden zero tolerance thing was starting to ramp up too. So why bring that negative attention to your company? I get that. But at the same time, Marty would have loved to hear him say, fuck yeah, get rid of them. They're unneeded. But he's also running a business that's worth at least more than one coffee cup.
I get it.
Worth way more than a coffee cup.
We see guys in the comment section that they pick their battles and they just have one, because I have the same guys in the comment section that are tight. I'm sure you do too. That are banging away at the keyboard always over this one issue. And I think for me, I've probably picked that up a little bit over Troy. If you don't know this, the shooters at Ruby Ridge, I don't think it was a shooter. I think it was a sniper spotter, was hired at Troy, but their battle sites are freaking amazing. But I can't do business with them over that. For me, that's a line in the sand. I think we all have to acknowledge that there is a continuum of how bad the company is. And it's not just all black and all white. For the 400th time, I have a problem with people banging on communist phones. And then I had a viewer yesterday go, Johnny, I'm so tired of your phone argument. There are no other options. There's a couple Korean phones that aren't that great, but essentially they're all made overseas. And I think he's right. I think he's right that there's not a lot of options for phones. And maybe my whole Apple thing doesn't work, because an Apple is a tool that you and I use. Anthony, you an Apple guy?
Yeah.
It's a tool that all three of us use to get a freedom message out to folks, and we're using the tool. I think that's pretty good. As far as the gun companies, I'm like, just buy used. I have a problem with Turkish firearms, not just because they suck, but also because they are made in a country that burns Christians alive. In the last decade, Christians have been put to the death there. And I have a problem with that. I don't have a problem if you just go buy one used in a parking lot. But at the end of the day, my shoes were made in Vietnam.
Yeah,
in the gun community too, it comes down to like a lot of, again, like there's sliding scales to all this, because some guys will say, I don't support Daniel Defense because of their, stance on the Second Amendment, and yet they'll go buy 500 Holosuns made out of China. Like, what do you think China's stance on the Second Amendment is? In all reality. Or O-lights, there's guys who swear by O-lights, and they'll go buy a bunch of those, and the same thing. So, again, I think it's all person dependent. I think it's well taken, Johnny. You said some people just have that one company or that one thing, and they'll just, freak out about that one company, but not.
Who lives rent free in your brain? I'm telling you, Troy, when that comes up, that's all I hear. When I hear Ruger, I don't even really remember the Ruger stuff. Rock Island Armory in Springfield, if I hear that, I'm like, nah. So for me, they're like a 7, 8. I hear Troy and I'm like, oh, hell no. Do you got anybody that's 8, 9, or 10 for you when you hear their name?
I think Troy's a big one, because I remember even recently, I was like on Primary Arms or something like that, and I saw a Troy Upper, and it was on sale. And I was like, that's not a bad price. But I was like, but it's Troy. I'm not going to buy it.
Yeah.
So I think that's like, if it sticks out in your brain like that, then it's probably to that level.
Who's in you? 8, 9, or 10?
Troy and Starbucks.
Starbucks?
Yeah.
Starbucks.
You and I have had Starbucks together.
We have, but
when we're on the road and we're at the hotel and that's all they have in the lobby, we're like, I've seen you sigh. Like,
yeah,
caffeine addiction is.
We've all done that. Yeah, we've all done that at conventions.
Remember they passed that policy where you couldn't conceal carry, and if you guys, I mean, really, if you're concealed carrying, nobody knows.
Yeah.
With the right attitude, you can conceal carry where? Everywhere.
And I've tried. There's just the little things,
Starbucks and Troy, they're no-goes for you.
Yeah. I mean, although sometimes I need a coffee pickup, and if I'm on the road.
If we're on the road, what do you do? Once a year, like whoop-de-doo, like whatever.
The blackout's the best.
I've heard blackouts pretty doggone good. When my kids were little, I took them to Disney. I rolled my eyes. It's kind of like having Starbucks in a hotel lobby once a year. You roll your eyes and you have your caffeine fix. I've taken my kids to Disney, and I've had people go, "Oh my God." It was freaking fun. Like, we had a freaking blast. It was awesome.
I'm glad you said that. Like, we were planning for years to take the kids to Disney, and once they went super woke, I won't give them my money.
This was before. My kids are older than some of yours. Anthony, other than Gun World, who's in any companies that you just refuse to work with? This is acknowledging that we're wearing shoes made in Vietnam.
Dick's Sporting Goods.
Yeah, not anything that like sticks out in my mind really. And again, I think that's because like for me, I try not to base my life purely on that, because there's just so many other things going on, and we're focused on a lot of other real like two-way fights. Like, I'm more concerned about what the hell ATF's doing and what like the Biden administration and those, and like, the state of California is doing to attack our rights, to where if a celebrity says something that's anti-gun, I'm like, okay, you're dumb. You're just in Hollywood. Like, I'm not listening to what you say anyways. And a lot of these companies also in the same way. Starbucks is probably the one that would stick out in my mind. Like, I just don't generally go to Starbucks anyways. And that wasn't like I'm sick. So
that wasn't, I don't go to Starbucks.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned Hollywood right there. That's a great one for me. I freaking love movies. I know y'all are medium movie guys. I am an off the chart movie guy. I freaking love Hollywood. I have adopted these separate the artwork from the artist. I can watch a Sean Penn movie and not kill over dead. He had one about 12, 14 years ago. The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, and he was phenomenal in that movie. I also know he is a decrepit piece of crap when it comes to Freedom America and all things red, white, and blue. But I can separate a little bit. I've had viewers get so upset that I go to a movie.
Yeah, the ones that pissed me off recently that stick out in my mind when you talk about like Hollywood is like Dave Bautista, and is like super pro Kamala and anti-gun, and then you see him at like Terran Tacticals, like training and shooting for these movie roles. That is always like him being an assassin or something. Like, dude, how big of a hypocrite can you be? And then that really sucks for me because, some young Anthony Miranda, background is like, I was a big WWE fan, big wrestling fan, still am to this day. Watch it every, once in a while, periodically, usually like through like reels and stuff to see like what's happening. But I was a big Batista fan. I remember when I was a kid, I had a picture of Batista on my wall. And then you hear him say stuff like that, and you're like, oh, like that disgusts you.
But are you able to separate the artist from the artwork? And like if there was a Guardians of the Galaxy 3, 4, or 5, whatever, because Guardians of the Galaxy is funny, like honest to goodness funny. If there was a new one that came out and it had Batista in there, would you go see it?
Yeah, I would still watch it. A lot of his movies, I don't think I'm just not that generally interested in anyways. I think the last thing that he did that I thought was good is there was that movie with him in a cabin. Yeah, I don't know if you guys watched that one. It's like End of World one. That was kind of intriguing. It was a different role for him. But yeah, I mean, I'll still watch Guardians of the Galaxy because it's fun, whatever. But some of the other ones that he does, I'm just not running to the theater in general to watch them.
We always say this phrase, choose your battles. And it's really interesting to me. And this whole Tim Kennedy thing with the USCCA for me, because I had to go public yesterday. I didn't have to, but I did. Yesterday, I did a public video and said, hey, I drew a line in the sand over double check. I rolled my eyes over a lot of the stuff he had done. You and I have been to events and we've drunk beer with him sitting 2 booths over, not the end of the world. I don't think he's a communist. I don't think he hates America. I don't think he works for North Korea. I think he's a dumb. And but I drew a line in the sand on double check. For me, you say, people say choose their battles. I think there's a few that I draw the line in the sand. There's a few that I roll my eyes and go, ah. I've had guys get so upset when I went and saw last summer before last, the new Top Gun movie. Did you go see that in the theater?
Yes, Anthony and I skipped out on a day at it's the last NRA convention I ever went to.
Me too.
We skipped out on the whole day, first half of the day, and went to go see the movie on release day.
Did y'all reach into the popcorn at the same time and then look at each other?
It was in my lap.
Yeah.
My gaydar just went off. So this idea, what we're talking about is the idea of is there lines in the sand, and this whole thing with Tim Kennedy has really made me stop and kind of evaluate, who do I work with, who do I support, who do I give money to, and all acknowledging that we give money to filth, garbage, and communists all the time, every day of our life. We are buying, because there's only 6 corporations in the world, 6 or 8. There's different models, but there's maybe 6 or 8 corporations in the world, and people are like, you should only give your money to mom and pop. Where do you think mom and pop bought all that supplies that they sell their stuff in? It's all wrapped in plastic. Like there's no way to live clean in America. Is that fair?
Pretty much, unless you're in the mountains.
Unless you're in the mountains, you are still somehow connected to the pipeline. But where's, for folks out there, where's your line? Is there any companies you have drawn a line in the sand? I don't know how you found us. We're glad you did. Whether you found us here on YouTube or Spotify, get yourself subscribed. Click that button. We appreciate that so much. All right, last thing. Here we go. I got a 1301 shotgun. I put a Romeo 7S on it last night. How long will that Romeo 7 ask? Anthony, I'm going to ask you the same question. Is that shotgun going to eat up that Romeo, or will it survive? Predictions?
I think it'll survive only because Mr. Guns and Gear said so.
Mr. Guns and Gear says so. Anthony, will my Romeo 7 survive, or is it going to go?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a pretty safe bet. If Mike's tested it and said it'll survive, it'll survive.
Mr. Guns and Gear says my Romeo 7 is going to survive. What say y'all out there? On behalf of Jared of Guns and Gadgets and Anthony the Arms Scholar, we call him String Cheese, and we love him. I'm Johnny B, and we'll see you soon.